call this meeting to order at 12:07. Before we go to the invocation and pledges of allegiance, Dr. Richter.
Yes, I just wanted to make a couple of announcements. Gratitude, number one, big thanks to Thomas Raphael, Brandon, and their crew for taking us around the last few hours so that we can see some of the facility enhancements for the 18 bond project. So thank you guys very much. You planned it really well, and I think our trustees had a chance to actually see a lot of work that's in progress or has been recently completed. I also, before I turn it over to Mr. Campos, or call on Mr. Campos to lead us in our invitation, I want to recognize Dr. Sam Ruiz. And I see that there's a cake in that. Has successfully completed her doctorate program and defended her dissertation. And so I know you've been talking about it for a while, but I think the cake really make it official.
Thank you.
So, congratulations, Sam. We're very proud of you. So, if Mr. Campos, if you'll lead us in the invocation,
Yes, please.
followed by the pledge of allegiance, please.
Yes, please. At this time, I also would like to call for a moment of silence for the victims of Uvalde. If you please bow your heads in that time. Thank you. Lord, may your goodness and love be present among us today. Come bless our gathering with unity, hope, and vision. As we meet today, come be with us. Breathe life into our thoughts, ideas, and decisions. Come give us the inspiration to be the best we can be. May we be a shining example of your goodness and truth within the workplace. We pray for the families and friends of Uvalde. Please keep and carry those precious people in their sadness and loss. Cover them with your great love. Give their weary hearts rest, their minds sound sleep. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Campos.
Okay, any public comments? Okay, consider approval of the relocation of portable buildings to Southwest Legacy High School.
Yes, sir. This was one of our capital project plans. We have 4 portables in the back here that we use at McCullough during their renovation project. Currently, talking to Principal Black, he has about 13 floaters at Southwest Legacy. And we want to move 4 portables over there to help deal with that overflow. Also, expanding our OTC, they need a little bit more space, and so we're asking the board to approve Dotson House Moving Company for $65,000 to move those 4 portables over to Southwest Legacy. Then from there will be some additional costs. It won't be the movers, it'll be technology and getting out electrical into the area so we can be up and running for the start of next school.
I move. Second. We have a motion and a second that we approve the Dodson House Moving Company to relocate the above-mentioned portables for the amount of $65,728. Any questions or discussion?
Just one quick question. I know Dotson's behind on a lot of stuff. When do we think we're gonna get them moved?
That's what we're going to be working with. He doesn't give us, they haven't given us a final or when they're going to actually start moving, right, Thomas?
We're in the schedule right now. He's working on getting his schedule to tell me an exact date on when they're gonna have us moved. It will be close to the time. So we're currently working on getting all the conduit, power, fire alarm, PA, all of that run to where the buildings are gonna be now, ahead of them being dropped, put into the shut.
Where are they putting them?
Behind, closer to like the fine arts area, right there.
Right outside the fine arts, and if you know where the welding shop is at, it's just right behind there. Where
Across the street there.
Sure, yeah, smaller stuff.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Info, state assessment update.
Yes, sir. We have Mr. Lila Garcia and her folks who are going to do a presentation since we're just getting back from our results from the news reports and STAR. I think you might touch on some CCMR data.
Yes, so we do have Lisa Bolte here with us. She's our AD of Accountability and Assessment. And so we are pleased to share our early reports that you will soon see some reports around the city, around the state as well with these numbers. So I appreciate Lisa Bolte preparing this information for us this morning.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, so good afternoon, Mr. President, esteemed board members. So we have our preliminary STAR results because we are 100% online testing. And our principals all made that decision to go ahead to move to online testing since next year we have to be online. We are able to have our preliminary results right now, while other districts who did not make that 100% move are still getting their data. So I have great news for you, because this is what our 3 through 8 data looks like compared to last year. So we're seeing that we're starting to close that COVID gap, and we're seeing double-digit gains in most subjects and most grade levels across the board 3 through 8. And then at high school, we're also seeing those gains. Our English one, which is a really tough test, we held steady, which is great. And then we are seeing gains in the other 4 subject areas at high school. So these are, again, our preliminary results. There's a couple, 1 or 2 students that, for whatever reason, had to test paper. They're not included. And of course, it hasn't been filtered for accountability purposes. So, any questions that you'd like to ask me about the preliminary data?
And I think I sent this out to you all by email as well, so we have it there.
Okay, yes, we'll come back in August and share with you just all the full reports, which will include CCMR and some other information that we don't have those reports yet here with us. But we do appreciate the hard work, especially of our teachers in the classrooms that made this possible. And to just everyone that's part of this success of us continuing to close the COVID gap.
When does the ratings come out?
So that we'll get our ratings in the middle of August. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Budget update.
Thank you.
So this is a continuation while Brandon's pulling this up. So I think as the whole process works, we start in January looking at assumptions and predictions and doing the best we can to understand the state of the environment that we're in. I can tell you right now that I'm not aware of any, especially local district, that's passing a balanced budget. Everything seems to be kind of falling in, this is our deficit budget. We're going to be no different. I think as we get closer to when we normally approve our budget for the next year, school year, is in August, last day in August, that there are some decisions we have to make, and I think you're going to get some really good information today about what decision points we need a little direction on, where the board want to go. We'll give some comparison data. Brandon's done a really great job of staying on top of this. I know you all hear a lot about ESSER. Just please remember that ESSER funding is an artificial cliff if you're not careful. That the district can be in a really horrible position in 2-3 years down the road. So we're always trying to keep that in mind. And we're also trying to make sure we have services available for our students and what they need like that. So Brandon will get into this, then we'll definitely present and open it up for questions, and then kind of share those points where we need some kind of direction on the board.
Well, and just to start off, just so you can see the agenda, I'm really going to start with the big picture first, and then kind of, usually I'll work to the big picture, but I think I just want to give you the upfront where we are, where we're at, where I think we're headed. I want to make sure we understand what our district financially is in for the 21-22 school year, because it does impact next school year as well. And at the same time, Dr. Versa talked about ESSER funds, but I'm also talking about fund balance. I want to show you where we've come from fund balance, where we were, and how we kind of really did a good job to maintain that and actually grow that. So At the end of the day, your ESSER funds and your fund balance are for 80 days, and I believe that's where we're at. And we're headed for a few years until certain things happen for our district, and I'll get into those. I need to talk about preliminary values again. They're even higher than what the first preliminary values came out to. So there's some possibilities there that we have to take a look at as far as tax rate and what we need to do to move forward for a future bond. And so I'm going to briefly cover that so that I can kind of set the stage for that in the future. Potential shortfall settle up. I talked about this last time that based on where we're at ADA wise, the state's going to overpay us for this school year. And then it's not an overpayment like they're paying more than we should get. It was based on the fact that we were getting this money because I thought we were going to get it, but attendance really hurt that. And so they're still going to pay us because that's the way the state works. And at the end of the day, come September of next year into October, they will settle up with us. And what that means is, since they overpaid us, they're going to take away from funding next year because they said, well, you already gave you those funds and you didn't earn those funds based on your attendance. And I'll cover that. Talk about budget assumptions when I'm using to try to get the data and really focused on revenue side. It's the harder piece. It always is harder, but it's a little bit more harder when you don't have really good trend data because we don't know where our ADA is going to be next year. And that's probably the biggest driver right now that I'm looking at. Staffing, where we at, and then I'm going to briefly cover compensation, what I'm seeing around the city, what other districts have done, show you some comparisons of where we're at, where we possibly need to go, and where we need to be at. So just tracking. Every month you get this in the board book at the regular board meeting. And every month, the key to this is to always look at this number here, or this one's not working, but where it says general fund in red, how much income are we bringing in versus how much we're spending. And usually it's around July where you start to see it level and be balanced. And it's really early for us now to see that we're already balanced and we're actually spending more than we're bringing in. There's a couple factors there. It's not that alarming, but we have a lot of money in fund balance right now for this year. We've purchased property, we've done capital projects, we had a lot of money roll over from last year, and so that's not always a good, like we're going to be in the red, but what that tells me is normally in a normal school year that we have enough savings in the district because maybe we didn't fill some positions, people didn't spend their money, that a lot of times those fund balance items that we ask for here y'all to pay for, get paid for in the regular budget. It's at the end of the day, we didn't spend the whole, but this shows me that we're actually spending our budget and spending fund balance, and so it could come to fruition that everything we ask to spend out of fund balance does happen. But it's not alarming. We knew when we planned on spending it down, but normally the budget kind of helps mitigate that. But this will be what we'll continue to watch to see where we end up. But if you notice, our general fund revenue budget was $144 million is what I expected to get. That included the 6.7 that the state is going to overpay us because they also thought we were getting that, but our ADA chose differently. But 160 in expenditures shows that that's what we have basically for fund balance. And I'm going to show you the fund balance just so full transparency you can see where the money's going. So I'll continue to track this and I'll continue to bring this back because this is important for us for this school year. It's good for us in the other school years, but normally I'm putting money back, and so I'm watching this, and if I see anything alarming, this is a little alarming to me just because I see we're on a different pace than normal. Assumptions, so what I'm looking at next year for enrollment, that's another piece to monitor. I know everybody sees development. We'll get a better picture at the next board meeting because we're going to have Brent here. He's going to give us a demographic study. He's going to show us that we're going to have growth, and we're going to have growth in certain areas, but then we're having some declining enrollment in different areas of the district, and so we're going to have to monitor that. ADA, 93.9% is our target, so if we're there or higher, that's kind of where been our trend data in the past. This last year we were at 88. It's almost, for every percent is $1 million. So every percent we move in ADA is $1 million to the budget, so that's why you start to see this shortfall when our ADA falls well below what it should be. The state stepped in and helped us the first 6 weeks, but the last 6 weeks still ended and it brought that number down. So we're going to turn in a number around 11.8. which last year's budget I put around 12.4 as well as for ADA, and so that's where the shortfall came. And the state, like I said, already paid us these funds, and they'll be asking for it back. Property values, last time I was here was 5.6, right now it's at 5.9. These new values that just came out, so that's a 33% increase in values for our school districts. That's tremendous, that's huge. It has a lot of implications for a lot of things, and we're going to have to try to dive into them as we move forward, because it's going to impact our tax rate. It's going to really impact our future bond issuances and the capacity we have. It basically opens the door for a lot of things that could happen in the future in the bond world, or as far as making room for capacity. But at the same time, it's moving the needle where, not to say that we're property rich, but in the past we would do a bond and then we would have the state pay for half. Well, I'm pretty much positive next year I'm going to go into next year not getting any state aid for INS because we don't need it. And so I'm going to talk about that and show you there. Next steps, once we get the tax rate, on July 25th, we get our real certified values from the BCAD. Right now, we have over $1.6 billion still being under protest. So I show you 5.9, but 1.6 of that is under protest at this point. So people can go in there, they protest their taxes, the BCAD can make changes, and that number can go down. And so it might not, most likely won't be 5.9, but that's a starting point for us, and that could decrease as time goes. Why is that important? Because that's how much taxes we bring in. So I need that number solidified by the 25th, so I can tell you how much M&O we're getting, how much INS, and what that impacts is impact state aid. If you remember, what you get in your taxes impacts your state aid, because as you get richer on the tax side, they take away from your state aid side.
So, Brandon, what was the number before that, that 5?
The back in, when they gave me in April, it was 5.6. And so they've still been working through appraisals. Are you talking about?
So it's 5.9, that's how much it is now, right?
So they, yeah.
That's estimated.
Correct, that's
And
what they're estimating.
Going back to where, before all of the 33 increase, what was the number at?
So I'm gonna show, I got one for you here. Let me cover this and I'm gonna actually go to that for you. So, big picture. So this is next year, this is where I'm at right now. If all the data that I'm using is current, and this is where we had to adopt a budget. So looking at the top, there's another one, because I need to point, is revenue. So you see 21, 22, there's 3 columns. One column is local taxes. So that first one where it says 5,700, that is our taxes. And so this year we're receiving 43.8 in M&O. Next year I'm predicting, based on these values, and these will continue to change, that we're going to receive 53. So you're going to see that we got a $10 million increase on the amount of taxes we're going to receive. If you look at state revenues, well, state revenues looks at your ADA, and then they look at how much taxes you get, and they make an adjustment. So it looks like state revenues that we're going to receive 96 million, but in actuality we're probably going to receive 84 million, based on the numbers. And so you can see how that decreases and makes it different. And then federal revenues, where you see federal revenues, that's all our MSP shares, our indirect costs that we charge to our title grants, any kind of grant that we get that's not coming from Title I or the titles. And so there's some revenue there. So basically, 21, 22, I predicted that we were going to receive $142 million in revenue. And what I'm predicting for next year is about 141.1 million, based on the ADA numbers I'm using and the values that I'm using. So that's about a $1.3 million difference, less. Moving to expenditures. The board adopted a budget of 146.5. So notice last year we adopted a deficit budget already in 21-22. We knew that going in. We gave a raise. At the time, we used basically fund balance to fund it. So we're already in a deficit. And if we do, I just put a 2% just to give you an idea. If you do a 2% increase, it's about $2.3 million to next year's budget. We've already added the staff that you have approved. There's special ed staff in there. There's the aquatic staff. And then there is in this the CAS staff that was being funded by CAS and now have to move to local funds. And that's 2.1. So that gives me a budget of $151 million that if we just did that with a raise, you can see that I'm already in a $10 million deficit. A couple items that I have to address. I've already come to you once for transportation, and I can't see it unless there's a miracle in the next 6 months that prices don't stay the same for diesel. So to finish the year, we estimated we needed $200,000. That got us to April. So I'm basically probably going to need that for next year. So I'll put that in the budget. F&M, same thing. Costs of services, cost of parts have gone up. I visited with Thomas and moved funds that we had available in our budget to help. And then the aquatic center budget includes hiring lifeguards and training lifeguards and supplies and chemicals. That budget's going to be added to the. And then this is a request that I just put on here. I know we need to talk about it more, but if we added 5 officers, this is what it would cost. I would have to adjust their budget. for the PD radios that they need, and then obviously their budget supplies, their overtime, because they do receive a lot of overtime. And then we would have to purchase some vehicles for them to drive because we would not have enough vehicles for them. So that would put me at 152 million for our budget, or the district, I'm sorry. So the total deficit would be 11,242,000. The difference and the problem that we face is, since we're getting overpaid for this budget, when I say we're overpaid, doesn't mean that we have extra money. The overpayment is actually still helping the budget, because that's what I anticipated getting. So it's not an overpayment where, okay, they gave us 7 million, it's going to fund balance, I get it back. That's not what's happening. There's a strategy I'm going to use to try to do that. But in the essence, the state's going to take 6.7 away from us next year. And so really my deficit's $18 million for the 22-23 school year. And really the big difference is that settle-up payment. If that goes away in the future, we would be sitting at around $11 million deficit as a district. Questions on this? Okay.
So, going on to expenditures, we see only 2%. With the inflation going on right now, could we see an even increase expenditure percentage?
Yeah.
What is that direction point where we'd be asking you all
Yeah.
to defend this?
I'm going to show you
Okay.
data, and then I'm going to get to 2 to 3%, what that does to the budget. I mean, at the end of the day, we can do whatever the board wants. I'm just showing you where I'm at if I just did 2 and all the other stuff that we have to do, that's going on with our budget. But yeah, I'll get to that. I'll show you. I'm using 2 of these. So this is what I was talking about briefly of the settle up. So this is exactly what it is. TA is already telling me, based on your data, here's what you should receive. So if you look at this current allocation, that is what we predicted and what they predicted, but this is what our actual data shows. And so they're telling me this is how much we're overpaying you for this school year. And so they're going to come back during the settle process. Normally, I'm looking at this and they owe me money, which is, when I come to you and say, hey, they owe us another $300,000, that's usually most of the time, almost every time since I've been here, that's happened on the positive.
So talk a little bit about that, Brandon. So a lot of that happened because of the loss of enrollment with the pandemic. A lot of it happened because of attendance is not on par where it has been in the
Correct.
past. It would even be worse if the state didn't step in and do homework for the first 4 or 6 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah, because the first 4 or 6 weeks actually gave us a higher attendance rate, but it still puts us at 6.7. So this is the data using that, because if they used the 88% at the time, back when those first 4 or 6 weeks, they were actually a lot lower. And so they did step in the first 4 or 6 weeks help us, but our last 2 6 weeks still kind of lagged behind. And so that still brought the number down where we're around 11.8 as far as 88. And so state still stepped in and really has helped us, because this number could, remember I showed you it was like 10. And so 10 or 11, and so it's helped. And then they gave us the equity money, and I thought, okay, they gave us another 1.7, and I thought that was good. And then at the end of the day, attendance hurt that too. And so I'll get into kind of our solutions on how we're going to deal with that. And really it's this. As of this week, in ESSER 2, we'll have $9.3 million left. We will be reclassing every substitute budget that we have in the district, which is about $1.5 million. I've already moved every coordinator, director, assistant superintendent, anybody that's not funded from a grant to ESSER 2. So we'll finish the year since January, so that'll cover probably another $2 million. Obviously, we put in this retention check out of this as well. And then next year, I'm going to fund the same group, which is going to be all the directors, coordinators out of ESSER. And so we'll be drawing down ESSER all next year. So we'll probably have that spent next year. We'll have 19 million left in ESSER 3, but there's things that we're doing like the playgrounds and different projects, furniture for libraries, things that we want to do with it. And we're also funding teachers that we added to the budget with those funds. So we have a little bit longer, 2 more years of those funds. But when you're talking about $10 to $11 million deficit, and then you see the 18, that's where we're going to be drawing from. The other piece of that is the 53 million that you're seeing right here is fund balance, and I'm going to walk you through that here in the next couple slides. So I know you have this in front of you, so it may be easier to see. Just to kind of go back, 17, 18, I highlighted the yellow columns because that's the columns we tap into. This is the unassigned and committed that I can bring to you, get a resolution, and we put the money either way. The budget where it says unassigned is really not designated for anything, it's for use. So like we come up with a project, we need to do this, we need to do that. The future construction needs and infrastructure needs, this is land, and if we wanted to build a building with fund balance, that's where you would have put those funds. And so those kind of held steady. I will say here, I'm going to spend about $7 million of that, 7.5, because I already spent 5 with the property, and we've already spent, we're going to spend for the 30 acres at Texas A&M. But the unassigned is the group. And you can see in 17-18, we were sitting at 57 million that we were available. And as of August of this year, we had almost 81 million. And so that's a good growth. We've been really good with our funds, and we put money back. I bring that up because if you go to the next page, you can see the same numbers. So as of August, the district had $80.9 million available in fund balance in the unassigned and committed. And then we passed the deficit budget, which was about 3.5 million, and then we had rollover stuff from last year. And so we adopted a budget of 7 million from those funds. So really, we had 73 million available since then. And since that has happened, we have purchased the property at Southwest, or for the next high school. And then we are about to purchase the 30 acres over here at Texas A&M. And so that's going to come out of that committed construction. And then down here, we had 1 year of the last year of the fine arts purchases of $1 million. We had a comptroller fee that we owed them back, the funds that we put in fund balance, that was a small one. And then we passed a capital plan project, that's moving the portables, that's the wrought iron fencing, that's some of the projects that we've been doing and trying to beautify the rest of the district. That was 2.2. We bid it out because the times are different now. The wrought iron fence project, it came in over budget, so we had to add 200,000 to finish that. The Sun Valley project, the same. We had it in the budget, but it came out a lot higher, so we had funds to do that project because it's needed. And then transportation, I asked the board for 200,000 help with fuel and parts to help sustain their budget. And then we needed to do a cybersecurity upgrade at the technology server, and that was a one-time purchase of 85, so that won't be impacting. But at the end of the day, and that's why the previous document I was showing you, where are we tracking this year? Like, are we balanced? Are we have more revenue than expenditures? Because I was able to tell that we weren't really going to use this, even though we asked for it just in case. But the budget sometimes would be able to sustain these. But at the end of the day, if we spend out all these budgets and it comes to like we spend every dollar, we would still have $61 million left. And if you go back, I mean, that really takes us back to 18-19. We were sitting at $61 million. I need about $34 million. The district is $34 million to sustain 3 months. So if God forbid, the world shut down, like that's really can happen now, then we would be able to support our district and pay payroll and take care of our vendors and pay utilities for 3 months. We have more than that.
That's in the 61 million?
Yes, out of 61 million, board policy, actually, anything that we do, state law, like if we go out for bonds, they're gonna look, you have 3 months reserved, so if something happened, could you sustain and stay open, right? That's a key part. And so, out of that 61 million, we'd had funds available because that's where we were not too long ago. But we've done really well and we've built it. But at this time, that's why I'm saying we're in a rainy day, and that's what these funds are for. And at the same time, we have things happening, like chiller goes out. I mean, there's still going to be those things that we're going to need to take care of. Questions on fund balance and ESSER?
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Given that the state, we have to pay them back the 6 million something, and you're saying that most districts are finding themselves in a similar situation due to enrollment and attendance?
I'm not saying that most districts. I mean,
Other districts?
Other districts, I'm assuming everybody's. This is not only just enrollment. So enrollment's a piece, but I took into account that enrollment was going to be down. I didn't say, hey, we're going to have 500 more kids.
You were
What
conservative.
was impactful was the 88.
Yes.
I didn't know that we were going to have lower than an 88% attendance. We did do virtual. I knew that was going to hurt it. So we did do virtual for a very long time. We had 300 kids basically not being marked here every day. But that only added on and compounded because we still went through COVID. We still had people out all the time, and even in the spring.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that's going to be the hardest. So based on that data is what, I talked to some districts and they've had low attendance, and I don't know where we rank on their attendance versus ours over these.
So given this, do you think that the state is going to expect all the school districts to pay this amount of payment just like that? I
Well,
mean, is it
they
possible
don't-
they might extend
No,
the
the-
payback period?
The way it works is they don't pay us.
I know they don't give you that.
They will not give us the funding.
But then that's gonna put a lot of districts in a really dire straits,
There
right?
there are some things you're not seeing in the budget workshop that we're hearing about, is that the federal government's gonna come in with a fourth ESSER and a fifth ESSER.
Okay.
But it hasn't been decided, it's not in concrete, we're not counting on it. For our budgeting purposes,
Oh,
it's
for
like,
sure.
we're left here. To answer your question, I'm in superintendent meetings weekly in Bear County. I know everyone's enrollment has dropped. I know that our attendance bouncing back is lagging, I would say, the average. We're in the bottom quartile versus other districts who've made their ADA recovered. And we did that intentionally. We knew we had 300 absences every day. So it's all about, what we saw the last week of school, though, was all of our high schools shot back up. So it's like, the potential is there. We're just gonna have to really be very planful, and we're gonna have more rooftops, we're gonna have more students come in. We just need to get back to where our new normal is, and really kind of drive getting kids into the classroom, because that's how we're gonna be funded. I really think there's gonna be mechanisms from the state, but predominantly from the federal government, that are gonna help us get through the next few years.
So we need to plan to not have it and then pray that we get it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Correct. I mean, we just need to get our attendance rate back to 94%.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because even, I'm saying this, and they're already going to cut me, but if we go into next year, and our attendance rate next year is 88, not only am I not going to get the money that we get overpaid this year, we're not going to get paid for
The
funds next year.
next, right.
So that'll be something that we'll really need to work on. So I want to move on to preliminary values because I don't want to run out of time, but based on the data I showed you that it's really a 33% increase, which is tremendous. So that's a $1.5 billion increase to our tax roll. That's like, I don't think we've ever had that. When Toyota came on, it was right at 1 billion, and so that was like 20-something%, but it's huge. And so you can see the things that are going on. How does that impact us? The main piece that I want to talk about is our tax rate. And so currently, our tax rate for M&O, so our current total tax rate is $1.37.4. Our M&O tax rate is 0.9359, and I have a formula that I can run to say, because the state now tells me what my M&O rate is going to be. They compress us based on your values. So based on that, and then adding the pennies back that we adopted back when we did the TRE, I expect that our M&O rate will be at 0.9094. So you can see that's about a 3 cent decrease, which was going to help taxpayers. Obviously, their appraisal value went up a lot, so they may not see a savings, but it does help. And then the INS rate. This rate, we adopt a rate to pay off our debt payment. So you set your INS rate at what you're going to have to pay back. And so next year, we need $339,677 to make our debt payment. So we have to set a rate to make that payment. And so that would really decrease our INS rate. And I bring this up because in the future, if the board and the district is willing to move to a bond, one of the main pieces of passing a bond is to not raise taxes. So if you lower your rate, you don't want to lower it significantly enough because you need to find out what bond capacity you need so that if you go out, you're not asking taxpayers to raise it back, especially now in this market with the values. So there's some strategies that districts use, and we've done this before, is we defease bonds going into next year. We lower the rate a little bit, and then we defease bonds and we pay off more debt. Because if you pay off more debt early, you have interest savings and you still have the capacity later to keep the rate the same. So when you go back, you're not asking the public to raise taxes. So if we lowered it, I'm just using an example. So right now our rate's 43.81. If I move it to 42.81, it should be a 1, I'm sorry. So if I lower it a penny, so we have 4 pennies off the tax rate. And our debt payment is 19.3. If we lower it to 42.81, that would give me an additional, or the district additional 5.2 million to pay off debt. If the district pays off 5.2 million of additional debt, it's a $9.7 million savings. Because you're paying off the debt, then you don't pay interest on it. So depending on when we're going to go out for bond, we may have to do this twice, this year and next year, if we want to keep a higher INS rate to pay off some additional debt, build capacity in our in our bond payments and also keep our tax rate where we can actually do a bond without raising taxes, if that makes sense. So there's some strategies there that we're gonna have to walk through with our financial advisor, bring on more data, and see what, where we need to be. And there's also part of this is, what are we needing to do in the future? In 2024, and you're gonna get more information on the next board meeting because our demographer is gonna come and present to you. But I can almost tell you that Spicewood Elementary is probably our biggest issue if that area and Vista and all that develop, because all those neighborhoods are going to flood Spicewood. And so we're gonna need probably another elementary before we need anything else. And then there's renovations, obviously, Elm Creek, Creewell, who are kind of our schools that are like the latest on the touch of getting in Legacy. I just talked about, we're moving portables there. We do have capacity issues at Legacy because, the way the building's built, they need more classrooms. And so we're gonna have to work together to come up with a plan on what we need to spend. But I can tell you right now, based on our value growth and this tax rate, in 2024, we could go out for $150 million and not raise taxes. That's how much our value's grown.
In what year?
We can do it next year. We can do it right now. Based on our value growth, we'll finish it and then we'll set our tax rate. But if we kept the tax rate the same and the capacity that we built through doing these refundings, we could go up for $150 million.
Would it be sooner the better? Would it be sooner the better?
Well, you don't want to go out. There's a couple of factors. Right now, one is it's not like it's a 50-50 shot. It'll pass because it's going around. People are just.
Yeah. It's
So-
not a good time, the taxes.
And no matter what you do, we would have to be really strategic, because no matter what happens, even though we don't raise the tax rate, it's going to say that on the ballot that your tax rates are getting raised because your values are going up, and that's the law. So there's some other things that we got to talk about. Build another elementary. We're going to need an elementary in one area, but I don't know if we can afford staffing it if we keep other elementaries open that aren't having enrollment. So it's not as easy as opening, we're already in a deficit, so opening another school is not a good idea unless you're willing to make some changes somewhere else.
Combine others.
Yeah, so adding a whole staff and adding, and all these other teachers and overhead and child nutrition staff and custodians and principals is not necessarily a good thing if you can't sustain your other buildings. And we see a little bit of that happening already. So we need enrollment to continue to grow, but I'm not saying Spicewood's going to be full next week, but in 5 years, and all those houses and all those kids come, that Spicewood could be. And there's some other campuses that are going to be impacted, but really that area with Vista, what's happening all in 16, what's happening all. And another issue is Bob Hope is a small campus, so it has capacity issues itself. It can only grow so much, where we can't put more kids there.
How many, what do they project here by Meadow Creek, all those houses going right there? What do they project for
That's what
increase there?
we're going to see on the 17th, because he hasn't sent it to us yet, and I haven't looked at it, but I'm assuming Meadow Creek, Southwest Elementary, Spicewood, and who else? And probably Sun Valley will see increases, the biggest being Spicewood. I mean, Spicewood's going to see tremendous. Meadow
So
Creek,
the relief for Spicewood is gonna be that property we bought over there by Tipsy.
well, we have that property, and we're going to have Legacy. So we have Legacy, we can build, we have a site at
Yes,
Legacy.
yes.
So we'll have 4 elementary sites, Legacy, Southwest, or Von Army, Hillcrest, and then we're buying the Texas A&M site. We're buying it big enough to do
Whatever.
where we think our need is at that time.
Another thing we're also looking at, I won't take your time because I know we're trying to push, is we have these 3 elementaries in Indian Creek, Sky Harbor, Hidden Cove, and we know that the neighborhoods are built out. So on the process, getting prepared for the next bond is coming up with a plan. How do we kind of change that when there's 2 elementaries supporting that area, and we do something else with another building that could be supportive, but maybe in a different way.
Yeah.
So that's going to be part of the thinking when we come back and start preparing for that.
So I'm going to skip forward because I just wanted to touch base on, that's just what, so I'm going to get in compensation just to give you an idea. So as we're moving forward, I'll probably bring back a bigger compensation plan with different variables and different percentages for everything in July. But just so you can see where we're at, we've always been pretty competitive. We've always been in the top 5. There's been times we've been number 1, but other districts are looking at what we do and they try to get us every year. And so there's been some districts like Bonita Valley used to be down here, and Mr. McGruer's over there, so he worked with me. He knows our strategy, and so he's been right there neck and neck with us. But right now, if you look at a first-year teacher, and there's a couple things here I want to show you. We're ranked 4th And then if you go to a 20-year teacher, I can give you every rank in every year, but I mean, it fluctuates, but we're pretty much in the top 5 all the way across the board as far as teacher salaries. Right now, the only thing I know Dr. Versa told me that Northside's probably going to do 2%, but you have to understand Northside's been number 1 and they're above us. And so our 2 main competitors are Northside and Medina Valley. And really Medina Valley lately has been taking a lot of our teachers, and they're growing because they need them. So is Northside. So those 2 districts not only are very competitive in pay, they also need lots of staff because of their growth. And so we need to be conscientious of where they're headed and understand what, we don't want to get so far away that it's so enticing. It's a $4,000 raise for a teacher to leave to go to their neighborhood school where they live next to. So we got to be competitive. Right now I know that East Central and Judson are thinking the same way because they've been so low lately. You can see East Central here 54, 53, and over here Judson 64 or 60, and then SCISD down here. So all these districts give big raises this year. Judson came out and did a 6%, so did East Central, because they're not competitive in their area.
But they have not given raises in some years.
Correct. So what they're doing is they're doing a big raise, and so 56 to East Central, I mean, that's going to put them in the top tier. And then Judson's going to go to number 1 because they gave a big raise because they're losing their teachers to the neighborhood schools around them. And East Central is another competitor of theirs. And so, I mean, in essence, we're all competing for teachers because there's a low demand and a high demand and low supply. So you have these districts doing these things. So I just put down some numbers here just so you can get an idea. I did show you that it was about 23 or 2.3 million for 2%. And I'll come back with other numbers, but if we do a 2% across the board, for teachers is about $1,200. And if you do a 3%, that's $1,800. And so what that does, so for a first-year teacher, if we did 2%, that puts them at 56.5, which would put them right up in here. But that's before all these other districts do something, because I mean, the other districts haven't moved yet either. So as we get closer, we'll start getting everybody's numbers to see.
Who are the ones that have already decided?
Right now, the ones that have decided is East Central, Judson, and SISD. So I can see these 3 districts, but I'm not too sure how many teachers we lose to those districts. I'm more concerned with Medina Valley, and I'm more concerned with Northside. Those 2 districts, a lot of our teachers live there.
Can you ask the demographers to look into this? Because I've noticed that if they work for Northside, their kids go to Northside.
Yes.
And see how many do we actually lose to those kind of issues? Because half I live in the new area of Cinco Lakes, and half of the kids that are high schoolers don't even go to our school. They go to either Harlan, or that's because their parents
work there.
They're working in Northside District. That's why I'm trying to figure out, well, how can I battle these?
They will get a transfer out report, and it'll show all the kids that are Northside going that are leaving, and I can ask him if he can plot that.
About 900 that go off.
Yeah.
And then we bring about 300 in. Don't know what district they're going to.
Yeah. So like 3% would put us at 57.1. So I mean that's a $1,800 increase, and so I'm here in Northside. It's probably going to do a 2%. So that would probably that's probably for them is about $1,300 to $1,400. So that would put them right at almost 59,000 starting, and then 20-year teacher. Right now we're 63.8. So if we did 1% or 2%, that would put us at 65,000. I mean, that would move us up. And then if we did a 3%, I mean, it's an extra $600. So that would be like 65.6.
Does Northside give teachers money every month for their health insurance?
I believe they do, but I don't know how much. I can get that list and see what.
I think it's a little less than ours.
Yeah, we're one of the highest contributing districts. So it's $4,500 a year that goes to people that. But then the mindset to that is if they don't take our insurance, they don't get to see the benefit.
Yeah.
So.
And they did a one-time employee retention this year where you all did too. So sometimes when we talk about this is
Yes.
y'all at the end, when we talk about the cumulative effect, we have to talk about all of that too.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch on that too because the board and the district has been really good about is keeping low class sizes. Like different districts are doing class waivers all the time. So there's a balance there, a balance of compensation and staff. Like anytime I meet with principals and then we talk about, what's like, we got to talk about salaries and they want to talk about, well, we need higher salaries so we can attract more people, but then we also want more staff, right? So there's a give and take there. And so if you look at the data, when looking at our student-teacher ratio, I mean, we're one of the top districts that have low teacher-student ratios, which is what teachers want as well. So that's why you don't see a mass exodus right here, a turnover because of teachers leaving our district, because we do pay pretty competitively, but we also keep our class sizes predominantly low enough. But I will say this, the district needs to be at 15.1 to 15.5 to break even on ratios. And this goes back to, I know I talked about it last time when I was going back to this chart. I changed the formulas so I could help elementaries and middle schools, because most of these, you see them losing, because I took an ESSER away that we gave them, because I got to get rid of those before the cliff comes. But this was 22 to 1. When I put the 22 to 1 in there across the board, I had campuses losing 5 to 6 teachers based on their enrollments. We have 5 campuses that are below 500 when they used to be 800. You know, 16, 17, 17, 18. And a lot of it's not just COVID. I mean, you know what's happening in our district, and that's your kids are being taken. But I'm only saying this because next year financially, if we can't turn it around, ADA, and there's a fix here. I mean, it's fixing the formulas back because we staff 22 to 1. We want our ratios to stay 22 to 1. And fixing that, because when you go in there, that's FTEs. And so we really helped the campuses this year because it's really year 2 coming out of COVID. And we have ESSER funds and fund balance, so it's hard to sit here and say, hey, we can't help you, so I'm just going to cut you. But at some point, we're going to run out of ESSER funds and we start going through fund balance. This is what's going to have to happen. We're going to have to fix these ratios back to levels so that this number right here, there, gets to about 15.1, 15.5. So, I mean, it's still only 15 to 1, teacher ratio. And that's a loaded number. I know it could be, there's different people have different, what you call a teacher, inclusion teachers and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's still funds, still paying for teachers versus students.
Are we aggressively targeting those students that we know have left so that they can return? Or?
Well, it's the ones that, we have a whole group that works on that, and there's lots that have left the state, left, you know, and
So it's for
some,
different various
yeah.
And you can hear from a group that's doing a lot of outreach with our business partners community. But there's a number of strategies we're going forward.
So the last piece is just kind of a timeline I left it for you. It's the same that we've been going through. You know, we're going to get into the end of June. We'll be finishing all department budgets. We're kind of finalizing staffing. Getting into compensation will be the next step. July, I hope to bring you different ratios. We wait till July, unfortunately, because we're waiting for everybody else to see what they do, see where we are in the market, just so that we can stay competitive. Because a lot of the June budget people, they do it now because they have to pass a budget in June.
There's a lot of them that-
The rest of us we don't pass a budget till August, so I know it's waiting, because you could say, hey, I'll give you a raise so I can attract more teachers, but it seems to be like.
But our teachers are already hearing, I already had a couple of messages, hey,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
I already hear that so-and-so is giving a raise. And
Correct. Well, you can hang your hat on that. We've always been in the top 5. We have low teachers, and then we gave 2 incentive checks, and we plan on still doing incentive retention
Yeah.
checks next year. So whatever the board decides to do, we still have ESSERs that we can pay. So adding 1,000 or 2,000 on top of what we do, and we already pay really well for insurance. I think we can still say we're financially pretty sound and we're going to help it. Just moving down the road, depending on ESSER and depending on fund balance is not the right way to go. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to navigate that.
You don't think any of this, I'm not talking about spending on people. I'm talking about spending on, like, what we have to do as spending on stuff that we buy to, like food and stuff like that. With the increases of going up with 7 to 8%, 7 or 8%, and then those increases, how are we gonna fix those kind of issues to where we are not spending that much? Because now it's like you say, we have a 3% or we have a 3% gap or a 3% hold on what we're trying to fund, and then all of a sudden we see a 7% increase in all what's happening around us globally.
Correct.
And then all of a sudden we're like hurting bad. Do you see anything like that could help?
Well, we're seeing that right now because, the cost of fuel is like, we're paying over $5 a gallon for diesel. I mean, you go buy an oil filter at AutoZone for a bus that usually costs like $60, this is $100. So we're already feeling all the constraints. The idea is that we get very resourceful and we get very strategic, and really it's upgrading facilities, because the older buildings, those are the things that are hurting us. So spending some money on the fund balance to upgrade things, especially HVAC and any kind of, really HVAC's really hurting us. Those are expensive items. We got a lot of new buses, so we've done a lot of good things, but we'll still get the impact. Food prices, child nutrition, luckily they're funded by the government, so they're getting, I mean, the government will adjust for them. But really the only way we make revenue is seat time on students and taxpayers. And the cost of inflation for most businesses, I know it's, people say give higher wages, but the business is also facing higher inflation rates for all their products and services they're trying
Yeah,
to use.
because
So
the
it's
new wage is $15 an hour for working at McDonald's, and then like, now how does that work for us getting bus drivers when we have our starting at 16, you know, like.
But McDonald's used to charge $5 for a meal, it
Now
charges
the charges
$12.
is
So I mean,
$12.
a business can adjust their
And
their
we can't.
revenue, where we, I mean, we.
Yeah.
So that's
We can't, that's what
correct.
we're worried about.
I guess the direction.
I'm sorry,
Uh-huh.
is somebody already working on the plan to consolidate some elementary, I mean, is somebody already thinking and working on it, so we're not like, uh-oh. gotta
Correct.
go.
Like that.
Yes.
Me and Dr. Versa sat down, we shared kind of like solutions lists that we just weren't really sharing with the board. It'd probably be some committee set up and just kind of sit and build a plan. We need to build a long-term plan for a future bond, but also a financial plan in case we don't see hopefully enrollment blows us out of the water. But I can tell you now, I don't want to say deceiving, but enrollment's going to impact pockets.
Yeah,
And it's going to look maybe on the overall enrollment like an increase, but you're still going to have areas which they always have been, landlocked, and there's not new development. And we just have to get strategic. We'll have to put some teams
yeah,
together.
I'd kind of like to get that idea, like maybe midway into the next school year, or maybe a third of the way into the next school year, so we at least can start talking about it.
Okay.
My plan is to take it to growth and planning, to have that conversation with the larger community, so we can bring that information back to the board. I think there's a few decision points that we would like to hear some direction. Is it maintaining our position, ranked position within the top 5 on the compensation? Is that something, because we think we can do that with between 2 and 3, or is it we want to have that top 3 position? That's what we need to hear. And you all saw the deficit, what it's going to look like. It doesn't matter what it looks like, depending on what we do. But I'd just like to know what you guys are thinking as far as compensation looks like. What rankings work.
Can I just say, just so that, I know Dr. V's talking about it, but remember when you're dealing with compensation, anything that happens now is a rollover so if you add 5 million now, it's gonna be 5 million for the rest of the year. I only say that just so you remember, at some point, you don't wanna go too far out, then you gotta pull back, because the only way you pull back is you tell them now, it's gonna decrease your pay. I mean, that's just something to think about, is what does that look like? And I think that Dr. D brings up a point. And I'm gonna build a plan for as high as you want me to go and as low as you want me to go, and for what different groups, and so you can see what the impact would be.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's different ways and there's different levels of pay for people and positions, and then.
Is there any consulting with anybody to figure out if we can lean out anywhere? Just a question to lean out. Something that we don't use, or something that we do need, or something that we don't use, or people that we.
That'll be we'll probably have to sit down and build that. That'll probably be the same plan as like, do we need this campus anymore? Do we need this staff anymore? So we'll have to, it won't be just facilities, it'll be capital. We'll have to create that.
We could close the campus down next year and be okay. We'd rather take our time getting there to see what it looks like and have the conversation about it.
And I would like the conversation with the board first, before you take it to growth and planning, because once you take it to growth and planning, then it's gonna get out in the whole community, and then they're gonna be calling us, why are you closing it, isn't it great? So I would like us to have the conversation, at least what you're gonna present to them first. That way we know before they know.
And then back to your question, I think we start at 2.
Okay.
You know, and then let's look at 3, and then let's have a greater discussion when we see more districts come in. next month or
Can we
so.
also look at 5 for the hourly, like the like pairs and bus and custodian?
I will say last year we did a 2, 3, and a 5 for them.
Oh, okay.
So we did a 5 for that group last year.
Good, okay.
Just so you, I mean, because we knew that we had to start moving towards that $15 because that's what everybody was doing.
Okay.
That's what we looked at.
So we plan on trying to, so I'll bring that, and, I mean, I'll give you different things. I can do
Okay.
that.
Bring you some rank orders of positions so you see what you rank.
And we can always remember also that some of these school districts that gave larger races, they have not given large races like
Oh,
that in
yeah.
a while, so it's more than likely it's gonna be another while before they do it again.
No, yeah, I heard, I mean, I talked to their CFOs and
Yeah.
like,
I think I already
it's
saw
all
the
one time
one
deal
Do you have-
for a while.
first time in 5 years for East Central.
Yeah,
And Judson. I talked
and
to Jackie.
Judson, and even Harlandale,
How much
because I
is
have
Judson
family that
getting?
works there.
They're doing a 6%,
Nice.
but I mean, he's,
Who
I
is?
know.
you thought, Judson, but you saw our deficit is.
Judson had been maintaining with only those
Yeah.
incentives for years.
But they've
So their
been,
deficit's double, you're saying?
oh, but they've already been in a deficit budget, so they just compounded them, so. That's all I got, sir.
Okay, it's 1 o'clock and
We're not gonna put you on.
I definitely don't wanna put them off. So is there, if everybody's okay, they promised me that I'm gonna take
15 minutes maybe?
Yeah, we're definitely not gonna do Jenny or Roger. We got you.
Or Brendan,
Southwest Community Relations and Business Partnerships update. Guess who?
My meeting.
I got you.
So Jesse, you gonna introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. I'm good with some. Is that the one of the 99 slides or what?
That's the 92 slides.
Board members, thank you guys so much for letting us give you just a quick blip of information. Everything that you just heard from Brandon is of course on our radar. So we realize that we have a ton of growth coming into the area. We realize that teacher retention is another piece as well that we can have a part in. So we're trying to work in some different places and kind of came up with some new programs so that one, we get to those new residents as soon as they hit us, and two, we're trying to work with community partners so that we have something to offer the teachers besides money to stay here at Southwest. So Dr. Sam Reese and Mr. Brandon Medina are going to go through those two projects with you right now. If you have any questions, just let us know.
Thank you guys so much for having us. We're really excited. I know we couldn't talk to you guys last time. However, I think this is going to go really well hand in hand with the conversation we just had. And so hopefully with that, Sam's going to go into more of the home builder realtor relationships. I'll be going into more of the business partnership side, and then we will get the ball rolling with that. So just so you guys know, just so you know what to expect. This is what we're going to be covering today. So again, home builder relations, realtor partnerships, the employee rewards program, and then also what's next for our whole division as a whole.
So over the next few slides, I'm going to go over our new home builder program, and as I go through it, you're going to see our newest communities on here marked by the gold stars. Our home builder program, our goal is to maintain and build relationships with our community partners, so the management teams that are selling the homes in our district, to help us increase enrollment, as previously discussed. So what we have been doing is creating SWIC welcome packets for the new residents that move into our communities. And an example of that is in front of you, which are the little green bags that we've kind of filled with Southwest ISD swag in them. And typically they do have tissue paper, so it's a little bit more presentable as well. And then we provide them with folders that have information to their feeder schools. So for example, we work with one of our communities over by Legacy, the Preserve at the Medina. So they have information on our pre-K for SA, our CASTEM programs, Legacy High School, Resnick, and Spicewood. And then some other district programs such as CT, things that we offer as well. So the CT, pre-K for SA, and CASTEM info is in all the folders across the board. We just change out the feeder schools based on the community that we're at that time. So here you'll see, oh no, you're good. It's okay. So on this next slide, you'll see two more by Palo Alto. You'll see the Preserve at the Medina, and then down below, that is LGI Builders, and then the second star, it's LGI, it's Preserve as well, but it's DR Fort Homes. And so right now we have a process. We're still learning as we go. This is still very fresh. We've only been doing it for about maybe 5 or 6 months. So as we go, we're speaking to the community managers and seeing how we can do better, things they'd like to see more, things that would be more beneficial to the residents. But as right now, our process is we visit them twice a month. And so we never want to go empty-handed. So if we're replenishing bags or folders, we do that one meeting, and the next meeting we might take like donuts or tacos, like just to kind of, again, maintain and build those relationships. And again, we deliver the bags and district info, and then, yeah, that's pretty much what I just wrote, sorry. And so here's some, on the left you'll see another map, so another more gold stars in our communities, and that is up there at the top. I added Los Altos, which is also by Palo Alto as well. And then on the right you'll see Bella Vista Homes, which is going to be across the highway from Palo Alto as well. So these are all underlined are all our communities. Next to it you'll see all the builders for each community. So some cool facts that we've kind of gone from some of our builders is, so Applewood is one of our newer ones, all 1604. They have 500 homes coming up, all between the price ranges of the 280s to the 340s, and about 40% are out-of-state and military residents. Down here at the Preserve at Medina, they do have about 80% of the residents that are coming from out-of-state and or military. And to collectively in that community, they have over 1,000 homes going up. So down here, you'll see highlighted the amount of welcome packages that we've been delivering over the last few months. And as you can see, they're increasing because they are selling faster. They're selling more homes and they're selling faster. And I know that we had visited, I believe it was the Preserve LGI, and one of the gentlemen there told us that in our area, in our district, we're expected 10 to 15,000 new rooftops in the next 5 to 10 years. So it's kind of what we're looking at when we talk about hoping to increase enrollment and attract these residents to send their children to our district. So moving forward, as of now, we're going to continue with our process with bi-weekly visits, so twice a month. We're going to continue to add communities to the list you just saw. I know if you've been around the district, you've seen new communities pop up, and I feel like we see new builds every day we go out there. So off the top of my head, I can think about 4 communities that are not even built yet that are already going up. So we're adding these communities to our list. One of our goals is to partner with them and maybe collectively do like an event, like a welcome resident event at some of these communities, so we can get out there and talk to people face to face about our schools and the things that we offer. And then again, to help us increase that student enrollment. So moving into our realtor partnerships. So as some of you were in attendance, we did have a realtor luncheon a few months ago. And our goal here is to get in the back pockets and the ears of these realtors. So we can speak to them, educate them on everything that we offer so that they're telling the residents that are moving into our district. We have built a contact list from that luncheon, but we're also trying to add as many as we can. Our goal is to have a quarterly newsletter just to not push out to these realtors, so if they're selling in the area, they know the events that are coming up, they know more things that we offer down the pipeline. And we really just want to maintain this database and build those relationships and hold those relationships as well to help us increase enrollment.
Alrighty, and I'll be going over the employer rewards program. I do have some rewards cards here. I know some might have them if you work in central office, but just so you guys can see and have a tangible card in your hands, what each teacher and central office personnel will be receiving as we continue this transition. So the employer rewards program is all about partnering with local business, shopping in the community, supporting local business so that they know us, we know them, and we can then get our name out there to these communities as well. So currently, right now, we have a 5-step plan that I created throughout this, and what it starts with, of course, is creating the awareness. We did that at the beginning, right about January. We started this in February. We created some excitement, some buzz. We had a lot of businesses jump out there. Jesse Garcia had a few already from Northport Toyota and a few that have already partnered with us that we just kind of built upon that and then added quite a bit underneath that. We launched online campaigns to kind of work smarter, not harder, so we pushed on social media, got some input there. We got a lot of people communicating about it with their business partners and their colleagues who maybe are entrepreneurs, so that was great. And then right now we're creating some community, a sense of community. So we want to do, like that realtor luncheon, a luncheon for local businesses to come meet us, come see exactly what we're doing, talk about Diversa, talk with the board, see where they can fit as well. So we're creating that opportunity and leveraging. And we saw that initially with our casino night. We had about 3 to 4 of them become vendors and sponsor casino as well. So we saw them wanting to be more involved with just the employer rewards program. So this is how we acquire new partners. As I said, a lot of it is still in-person requests. A lot of me and Sam or Jesse or whatever the case, going out and talking in front of them and working with them and seeing how we can, because a lot of these are small mom and pop shops, so everything from restaurants, automobile shops, health, all that good stuff. Social media as well as the way we do it. You can see the biggest is in-person requests in social media. We have a Qualtrics that we use, and you'll see in the next slide. And then word of mouth and outside inquiries. So outside inquiries include the Tobin Center recently came to me and sent in a Tobin Center request that you can get discounts for teachers and as well as educational personnel. And so we got stuff like that. You have SeaWorld, kind of one-offs that are here to help the educational staff to get some discounts. But most of it is still very much in-person and social media requests. And then this is a timeline. If you do scan this QR code, you'll be able to see the Qualtrics that I created so that when you want to be an employer rewards partner, the questionnaire is very quick, very easy. It gives you exactly who do I need to talk to, who's the point of contact, what discounts can you offer, or will you be offering? Is this a complete discount for only a certain amount of time, or is it going to be for a year, whatever the case. So October, we ordered the employer rewards cards. January, we created the web page once we moved over to the new website. And then we launched the employer rewards program with about 16 partners. And that's, again, with Jesse and the years that we've been partnering with people in the community. Right now, I just did a count. We have about 51. So that's just in a few months that we've been going out there and getting people together. And then in the summer, we want to add more franchises. We're trying to get with franchises as far as Sonics and Chick-fil-A's and more popular ones that maybe are franchised. We have a Sonic on there already currently. I know we want to get with Chick-fil-A, possibly on Petranco, we've been in talks with them. And then by the fall of this year, I want to have about 65 partners on this program. I think that's a fair goal to get to, so hopefully, appreciate it, guys. Thank you. But I think all of this is built to not only encourage our teachers and staff, but also just to give a little boost to say, hey, thank you. And this is not only for us to recognize our community partners, but for our community partners to recognize our teachers as well and show some love. So it's been going extremely well. This is the website what you see when you go under staff resources. So if you are a teacher or personnel in education, that's what you'll be seeing. We have local business partners, restaurants, health, wellness, realtors, and home buying, and higher education. And then these are the immediate action items that I want to move forward and take care of. So get to 65 partners, attract more partners within health and wellness, especially for the summer. I really want to get that done. As well as family-oriented business for this upcoming summer, and then create more opportunities for our education foundation and events. So we saw a little bit of that with Casino Night. I want to really encourage more of that, and we do have some upcoming plans to possibly do so. And then plan a networking event with our partners to learn all we can to see how they can benefit from this program as well. So that's what I'm doing on the employer rewards side, and that's what we're doing as a whole with the exam. Thank you very much.
So as you can see, we have kind of multiple things that are going out there. Not every subdivision that's out in the neighborhoods right now is on here. I can give you an example. There's one specific subdivision that we're like, hey, we want to help you, want to welcome the new residents, and they're like, thanks, but no thanks. So not everyone wants to participate. We know of at least 9 more subdivisions that'll be up before the end of the year. The hope is to partner with each and every one of them to grow the employee reward. So hopefully it's another retention piece that we can offer to our teachers as well, to be like, hey, look, this is a special program. Only Southwest ISD employees get these discounts at these places on this time. So we want to help on the retention side, but we're also very aware that there's a lot of folks coming in. They're coming from places all over the country that's not just necessarily San Antonio. So they don't know Southwest ISD as we have done in a previous presentation. So we're really having to kind of sell the district to these folks. We're all in contact with you residents. If there's questions about pre-K, if there's questions about CTE, the parents can contact us directly and we get to answer those questions. These guys are out there also giving tours at schools with some of them so that they can take the reps who are selling the schools out to your legacies and residents and show them the campuses so that they're aware of what's some of the items to pitch back to the families when they're trying to purchase in our area. So we're aware of that group and there's a lot of focus. Jenny and Roger are working on a separate piece where we're going to target those folks who that we know were here and may have left. Or there is another group that got here, never enrolled here, so we don't have the information that says they left, right? So that's another group of folks that we really need to target as well too. But we just wanted to share a little bit into the inside of the other half of our day when we're not doing events and we're not doing a lot of these other activities that you guys are so used to seeing inside. So thank you, board members. Any questions?
I don't have questions, but I do have some.
Yes, sir.
Just to make people aware of, it has nothing to do with, because I even go pull people in. So when I run into people, oh, come to our district, come out, like I send them to the school that they need to go to. I think that's the point we kind of use it because we could get them there and get them to the door.
Right.
But I'm afraid that we use them as soon as it gets to, oh, this may not be the school for you, or this may not be the place for you to bring a kid. Or they get in for like pre-K, for SA, or like whatever they're trying to get into, like the pre-K, and then they don't get a call back They fill all the paperwork out and then don't get a call back. I've had 3 situations where I don't think it's not us getting them to the door, I think it's keeping them from leaving the door. And that's where I just feel like we need to be more present, because that's what's happening in some of the schools.
But we need to work with our customer service then.
So we've been having that conversation. Matter of fact, we're very in tune with the customer service training, a gentleman by David Nash out of Carolina. And now we partner, Jesse and Brandon, and then we're actually doing training for Austin Service Center as well. So we've had that conversation. We've talked for the last 4 months with our principals about the mindset change that we need to do. When someone comes in your building, the last thing you want to do is direct them anywhere else. So we're putting kiosks in. No one should leave a building without having support about enrolling their child. There's no cap, so you can't say, we can keep this student here, but your other student has to go to this school because I'm capped out. So there's language and stuff that we need to correct. There's a mindset that we need to kind of reset, and we're working on those things with every one of our principals.
And I know it'll be part of our administrative retreat, right?
Yeah, we're gonna take an entire day. Day 2 will be just in customer service, and it'll also be with Jenny and Jesse, who are gonna be leading that work. And just the emphasis, like Dr. Russell mentioned, is we've been having conversations, and then also just some clarity of the conversations that should be happening at the campus level when the customer comes in.
And we've been on a journey in customer service as well too. We've been asked to go present in different places, and they'll be in Austin tomorrow presenting over the audit that we just had with Mr. Nash and the way the process that we went through and kind of our next steps. But I can tell you it's on the platform throughout the state, and this is probably the 3rd or 4th conference that we've been asked to go to, just kind of sharing our journey and what we've done. And we're still learning what we still need to do, but we also have a wealth of experience where a lot of other school districts haven't even tackled that yet. They know they're having issues with it, but they haven't even really done a lot of work behind it. So we're still in that journey, but we're willing to share that journey with other folks and willing to learn from other people as well to be able to get to what we want to be.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. Okay, we don't have a 6 because we don't have a 7, so we don't need an 8. And we got our one more thing, correct?
Yes, sir, we handed it out June 15th, next week. We have our district level summer picnic where we invite the board to join full-time, year-round employees for hamburger or hot dog. Also, June 21st is our next board meeting as well. And the T-shirt sales, I think the outreach to supporting the Uvalde community has gone extremely well. Really want to commend that whole department, I think, to make sure that we're putting out there a way to support our families, impacted families and residents in Uvalde. So, Ms. here, we're ready to go.
All right.
I want to thank all of you for your full committed day on Friday, June the 3rd. Thank you, trustees, because that was a long day. You did really well. We're not a Good Morning America, everything's fine.
Okay.
We're gonna have 2 public hearings on the 21st, so it'll start at 5:30, because we have to do all the federals and the SRSA review before we can post for the grant. And then we're also gonna have to do the DOI, so we'll have 2 back to back.
So we're
I would
starting
do
at
5:30,
5:30?
5:45, we're meeting at 6
Correct.
o'clock.
5:30, okay.
I just wanna make sure nobody,
And then if you want to stick around, I am, if you want to see the bus wash, because we didn't get a chance to show y'all, but you don't have to, it's up to you.
or you can stay for cake.
Yes.
We're going to have you under
Can we drive our,
Can we
can
walk?
you drive our truck through there?
We need to adjourn 1:20.